The purpose of this video is to help you with graphing and writing inequalities. Inequalities consist of the five following symbols. Okay, here are our 5 symbols. This symbol right here, and we'll talk about a mouth. This is the mouth, so the symbol with the mouth facing the right is less than. And this means whatever is on this side is smaller than whatever is on this side. This symbol looks very similar. We have the less than symbol as part of it, but we have this line underneath. That is half of an equal sign. So we say this is less than or equal to. Now we move into this symbol, which is the greater than symbol. The mouth is facing the left. So this number, whatever it is over here, is bigger than whatever is over here. And as I said, this is the greater than symbol. And now if you remember what happened over here, you can probably deduce what this symbol is called. This is the greater than or equal to symbol. And the way the or equal to symbols work, so the less than or equal to, or the greater than or equal to symbols, basically just means the number on the left, if we're talking about less than or equal to, the number on the left is either smaller than the number on the right, or is exactly the same as the number on the right, because we have an equal to. So we'll talk more about this in depth in a little bit, but when we have the less than or equal to or the greater than or equal to, the numbers can be exactly the same on both sides, or they follow the rule, which, okay, over here it has to be smaller than or equal to it, and over here it has to be bigger than or equal to it. And that brings us to our final symbol over here, which kind of looks like an equal sign. Here's your equal sign, with a line through it. And this is the not equal. And that's a terrible way to spell it, but there we go. And let's fix that. So the not equal to symbol. And it just says whatever is on the left side is not equal to whatever is on the right side. Alright, let's see some of these in action and how we use them for graphing. We're going to first talk about graphing, then we'll talk about writing the inequalities. So here we go. Here we have an inequality in front of us. It's saying whatever number b is, it is less than 4. So b can be any number, as long as it's smaller than 4. It could be, b could equal 3, b could equal 3.5, but b could not equal, and there's that symbol, not equal to, b could not equal anything bigger than 4. So it can't equal something, let's say, 5, because our inequality states that b has to be less than 4. Remember, on a less than symbol, the mouth opens to the right. This is the biggest number. And the way I always remembered which side was which was I always turned the mouth into shark teeth. And you want to eat the bigger number. So wherever it's facing, that's got to be the bigger number. So if I have b is less than 4, and I want to graph it, the first thing I'm going to do is draw a number line. Whenever we graph inequalities, we have a number line. Now, we are dealing with the number 4. That's the only concrete number we have. So I'm going to put 4 sort of in the middle. And I'm going to make some numbers to the right of it, so 5, 6, 7. And I'm going to make some numbers to the left of it. 3, 2, 1. When I am graphing an inequality, the first thing I need to look at after the concrete number that I'm working with is the symbol. This says less than. It is not less than or equal to. So that means when I put my symbol on the number line, I have to use an open circle. And this tells whoever is grading your paper or reading through your work that your number cannot be exactly 4, but it can get as close to 4 as it possibly wants as long as it stays smaller than it. And now that I have my open circle for less than, I will draw an arrow pointing the way that the tail of our inequality points. So the tail is right here. It's pointing to the left. So my inequality arrow is also going to go to the left. And this is the graph for b less than 4. It tells us it can be anything that is less than 4. So we won't get single answers when it comes to inequalities. We will get a range or an interval of answers. This is saying b is less than 4, so it can be anything smaller. As I said over here, it can be 3, it can be 3.5, it could be 3.9999. As long as it is smaller than 4, it satisfies the inequality. Let's take a look at another one. Here we have the inequality x is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, this means that whatever x is, it is going to be bigger than or the same as 5. So we could say x is 6. We could say x is 5.2. And we can even say x is exactly 5. We couldn't say that in the last example because we didn't have the or equal to part in our inequality. So I can be exactly 5 or I can be anything bigger. I cannot be smaller. Remember, the mouth faces the biggest number. It wants to eat the bigger number. Or in this case, it wants to eat the number that is exactly the same as well. Okay, now for graphing, we're going to follow the same steps. First, we'll draw our number line. Put the concrete number that we've been given in the middle. So there's my 5. Put a couple numbers to the right and to the left. And now we need to put our answer in. Before, when it was just less than, this is greater than, I know, but in the previous problem, when it was less than 5, or 4, sorry, we had to put an open circle. And if I didn't have this line right here, if I was working with x is greater than 5, I would have to put an open circle at 5. But since this is x is greater than or equal to, this circle can be filled in, because that tells us we can be exactly 5 as well. That is part of our answer. So it is equal to 5 and it is bigger than 5 as well. So our tail is pointing to the right, so our arrow is going to go to the right as well. And there is our inequality. We have graphed it to show that x is greater than or equal to 5 by having a filled-in circle at 5, and the line is getting bigger and bigger. All right, let's try one more before we talk about how to write these inequality statements. All right, for our final example here, we've got 2 is greater than or equal to t. So whatever whatever t is, it has to be smaller than 2 because 2 is greater than or equal to whatever t is. Now, I wrote it this way on purpose because we, in the past two examples, had our variable on the left side. But you could run into a case where your variable is on the right side. It really doesn't make a difference as long as you understand what the inequality is saying. If you prefer to have your variable on the left side, you can rewrite it. So I can rewrite this as t on the left side, 2 on the right side, and then I gotta remember that this has to flip. So the tail was facing the t and the mouth was facing the 2. That has to stay the same. So 2 being greater than or equal to t is going to mean the exact same thing as t being less than or equal to 2. Okay, and now that we've rewritten it, I'm going to get rid of the original because they are equivalent to each other. And let's move this over here a little. Okay, now we want to graph it. And if you feel confident in your graphing abilities, feel free to pause the video and give it a shot. Otherwise, here we go. We draw our line. Give ourselves a number line. And right in the middle, we put our only concrete number. We put our 2. So I've got 2 in the middle. So I'll put some numbers to the right of it, 3, 4, and 5. And then I'll put some numbers to the left of it, 1, 0, -1. Now we need to pay attention to our symbol. T is less than or equal to. So ask yourself, am I going to use an open circle or a closed circle here? Hopefully you said a closed circle because we have the or equal to portion. One way I heard someone explain this once is that there is extra ink with that extra line, so we have to use extra ink to fill in our circle. So I have a closed circle at 2 to show that our answer can be 2. And then our tail is pointing to the left, so our arrow goes to the left as well. And we have graphed the inequality t is less than or equal to 2. Now, we won't always be given the inequality right away. Sometimes we're given story problems, and it's going to be our job to interpret those story problems into an inequality and then graph it. So I'm going to share with you some key words to look out for that help you decide whether and which inequality symbol you should use, since, as we showed at the beginning of this video, there's 5 different ones. So let's take a look at some word problems. Here is a word problem that would use an inequality to solve it. It says the max speed on a street is 25 miles per hour. So we need to figure out, what does that mean? Well, if we are following not real-world rules where people always drive faster and think just in a mathematical sense, max speed can mean that this is the fastest we are allowed to go. We're not allowed to go over 25. So I need to ask myself, is this a case with x, which I'm going to use x for speed, x is less than 25, x is less than or equal to 25, x is greater than 25, or is x greater than or equal to 25? These are our 4 possible options. If we interpret the problem correctly, max speed means that this is the biggest we can possibly go. So that is automatically going to get rid of the greater than or equal to and just the greater than symbols, because these say that 25 is either the exact smallest or we're always going to be bigger than 25. And that's not what our problem says. Our problem says the max speed. So we have these two right here. And the last thing we have to ask ourselves is, when we're talking about max speed, does that mean I always have to be less than 25? Or can I be equal to 25? And since it says the max that is allowed is 25, that would mean that you can also be 25. So we lose just the less than 25, and we have written our inequality to be x less than or equal to 25. Okay, let's try another one. For our second word problem here, we are told that some company is hiring people, and they say new hires must have at least 3 years of experience. This is a key word here. At least is a huge indicator that you are going to be using an inequality. So, just like before, I'm going to write out my 4 possibilities here, and I'm going to use H for hires. So H is less than 3, H is less than or equal to 3, H is greater than 3, H is greater than or equal to 3. So, we want to reread the question and make sure we understand it. That is always huge when it comes to word problems. New hires must have at least 3 years of experience. So ask yourself, does that mean that they can H equal 2? If they have to have at least 3, they can't have 2. At least means that you have to be at least 3. You can't be smaller than 3. So which one of these say that H can equal 2? That's our less thans. Both the less thans say it could be possible that your answer is 2, so they have to go away. And now we've narrowed it down to H is greater than 3, or H is greater than or equal to 3. And once again, we read through it and try to interpret at least. If you have to have at least 3 years of experience, does that mean you can have exactly 3 years of experience? And the answer to that is yes. You don't have to have automatically more. That's what H greater than or 3 means, or greater than 3 means. But H greater than or equal to 3 means that we can have 3 and satisfy our condition, or we can have more. So this is our answer. And whenever you see the word at least, there's a really high chance you are going to see the greater than or equal sign being used with it. Alright, let's try one more of these, and then show the last possible way we could write an inequality. For our last one, we're talking about the finances of a company, and if that company makes less than $5,000, it will shut down. Well, key word that we're going to see here is less than. And if we wanted to write an inequality about the interval of money they could make that would cause them to shut down, we can write in our inequality. So we could have, I'll call it C for company. C is less than 5,000. Oops, don't need the comma there. C is less than or equal to 5,000. C is greater than 5,000. And C is greater than or equal to 5,000. Now this one kind of gives it away in the word problem. It says the words less than. So that means you can't be equal. And we have our inequality right here. Our answer is C is less than 5,000. We could make a claim that its C is less than or equal to 5,000, but in that case, it just doesn't fit. This says less than. So that means it has to be smaller than 5,000. If we make exactly 5,000 according to this, it won't be shut down. We have to make less than. So in this case, we would use the less than symbol. And if you ever see in your word problems the words less than, well, I'll leave it to you to realize that this is the symbol you're going to have to use, because it is the less than symbol. Now, the only other way that you could be asked to write an inequality would be by being shown a number line and being asked to interpret whatever that inequality is. So let's take a look at two quick examples, and we'll wrap this video up. Alright, so here we have two number lines for two different problems. Let's talk about the left number line first. If we want to write an inequality about this number line, first, look at the number we are given. It is a 3. We know we're given a 3 because that is where our circle is centered on. So we can say that something, some letter, I'll just call it X for right now, and 3 are going to have some sort of inequality. Look at what is happening to the 3. It is not filled in. So since it is not filled in, we know our answers could either be less than or greater than. And the way to figure this out is look at our, whoops, didn't mean to erase that, is to look at our arrow. What way is it pointing? It is pointing to the right, just like the tail of, whoops, didn't mean to erase that either, having some trouble here, just like the tail of our arrow here. So that tells me we want to have the inequality x is greater than 3. So x can be anything that is bigger than 3, and that's what we see in our number line. It starts at 3, but it does not include 3, and it only gets bigger. Now let's look at our final example over here to wrap up this video. Look at the number that we are starting with. Our circle, our dot, is at -5, and in this case I'm going to call it y. I'm just going to use a different variable, so I've got y, -5. Now look at your dot. This time it is filled in. So whatever inequality we're going to use, we know we're going to have an or equal to portion of it. And then just like before, we want to decide, should it be less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to? And to figure that out, look at our number line. Our answer is pointing to the left, and our tail matches up with the tail on our arrow. So we want y to be less than or equal to -5, because we can be -5 or we can be smaller. We can never be bigger. And there you have it. There we have graphing and writing inequalities. Hopefully you found this video helpful, and go out there and conquer your inequalities.